They told me the warning so many times that it eventually stopped sounding like advice and started sounding like advertising. Don't approach her. Don't make eye contact. Don't share an elevator. Don't breathe too loudly in the same corridor. By the third day on the station, I half expected the vending machines to flash "Don't approach her" in cheerful blue letters right before stealing my credits. I worked maintenance, which meant I fixed things nobody noticed until they broke, and broke things nobody admitted they used. The station orbited a red dwarf that looked permanently annoyed, and the artificial gravity hummed with the same tired tone as the people who lived here. Humans, traders, refugees, a few species that had forms humans liked to pretend were close enough, all stacked into rotating metal like spare parts in a drawer that didn't quite close. Her name was never spoken the same way twice. Sometimes it was whispered, sometimes joked about, sometimes replaced with vague hand gestures and a look that said, "You know who I mean, don't pretend you don't." The vampire girl. The alien woman, the problem, the liability. The reason station insurance premiums tripled overnight, according to a man who also believed gravity was a conspiracy. I hadn't seen her at first. Or maybe I had, and my brain politely refused to register her, like it did with warning labels and mirrors. The first actual sign of her existence came when my diagnostic tablet froze mid-scan and displayed a polite error message apologizing for biological ambiguity. I stared at it, tapped the screen, and asked out loud who exactly was confused. The tablet did not answer, which was rude but consistent. People filled the silence instead. "You were near her sector," someone said. "That happens." Someone else laughed too hard and said, "Lucky you didn't lose blood." Another person suggested garlic in the vents, which I assumed was a joke until I saw them submitting a requisition form. I filed the tablet issue and went back to work. Fear has a way of becoming background noise when rent is due and the oxygen recycler makes a sound it absolutely should not be making. The station didn't stop just because there was a monster on board, alien or otherwise. It just added another rule to the already impressive list of ways you could die. It was during a routine corridor inspection that I first noticed the lights flicker. Not the dramatic kind you see in holodramas, but a subtle hesitation, like the station itself had forgotten what it was doing for half a second. I made a note because that was my job, and because ignoring flickering lights was how legends about heroic last words usually started. That was when footsteps matched mine. I stopped, they stopped. I took one more step, they did too. I considered the possibilities ranked from most likely to most embarrassing. A coworker, a faulty echo, my own paranoia developing legs. I turned. She was there, close enough that my first thought was that personal space laws had been repealed without notice. She looked human in the way a reflection looks human until it blinks wrong. Her skin tone fit no known category on the station's medical scanners, which explained my tablet's identity crisis. Her eyes held a focus that felt uncomfortably precise, like she was reading subtext I hadn't written yet. And her ears were long, not exaggerated, not theatrical. Long in a way that suggested evolution had made a quiet decision and never bothered to explain it to anyone else. They curved back smoothly, catching the corridor light in a way that made them impossible to ignore and equally impossible to mistake. We stared at each other for a moment that lasted exactly long enough for my brain to scream, "Don't approach her," which felt a bit late given the circumstances. "Hi," I said, because panic often makes me polite. She tilted her head slightly, her ears moving with the gesture, and something about that motion made the station's ambient hum shift pitch. "You walk strangely," she said. I looked down at my boots, then back up. "They're regulation," I offered. "I can file a complaint." Her lips curved, not into a smile exactly, but into something adjacent to one. "I did not mean your feet." That seemed fair. I've been told that before. We stood there, neither of us moving away, which I realized was unusual when a passing crew member took one look at us and nearly walked into a bulkhead trying to reroute. I raised a hand in an awkward half-wave. "They fled." "They say you shouldn't talk to me," she said casually. "I've noticed," I replied. "They also say the coffee here is drinkable, so I take warnings with a grain of salt." That got an actual smile. It was small, quick, and unsettling in the way any genuine reaction feels when you're not sure it's supposed to happen. "You are not afraid." "Oh, I am," I said. "I just have a very relaxed relationship with fear. We don't make plans together. She studied me for another moment, and I felt the strange sensation of being scanned without any device acknowledging it. My implant pinged softly as if embarrassed. Somewhere nearby, a door refused to open until we both stepped back, then tried to apologize through its status lights. I chose to walk with you, she said. The sentence landed oddly, like a statement made after a decision I hadn't been informed about. I don't remember applying, I said. You were considered, she replied, briefly. Well, that's reassuring. We started walking not because either of us said so, but because staying still felt like tempting fate to do something educational. The corridor stretched ahead, familiar and suddenly not. The lights flickered again, and I pretended not to notice the way they stabilized once we fell into step. Do you always pick strangers? I asked. Do you always narrate your fear? She countered. Only when it's productive. She made a sound that might have been laughter or might have been her species' equivalent of acknowledging irony. They call me a vampire. I've heard worse nicknames, I said. Most of them involve my job. They think I drink blood. Do you? She glanced at me, eyes bright. Do you? Only socially. That earned another smile. No, she said, but the truth is less interesting to frighten people. That's human nature, I said. We prefer our monsters dramatic. We passed a security drone that immediately spun in place, recalibrated, and decided the ceiling was fascinating. I made a mental note to never tell anyone about that because it would absolutely become my fault. What do you do? She asked. I fix things, I said. Mostly things people break by pretending rules don't apply to them. You fix rules, she asked. I try, I said. They resist. Her ears twitched. You are amusing. Don't tell anyone, I said. I have a reputation to maintain. The station felt different as we walked, like it was holding its breath, waiting to see what would happen next. People avoided us in exaggerated arcs, whispering and staring and pretending not to stare. Somewhere, an announcement system began to issue a warning, thought better of it, and switched to playing soft music instead. I am not dangerous, she said suddenly. I know, I replied, surprising both of us. She looked at me again, searching. You do not know me. I know fear when it's lying, I said, and yours is. We reached the junction where our paths should have separated, where logic and common sense both pointed in opposite directions. I stopped, uncertain. She did not. After a moment, I followed. Somewhere behind us, someone finally said her name out loud, and the station shuddered like it had heard a secret it wasn't ready to process yet. Walking with her became a problem almost immediately, which was impressive considering how many problems the station already had. The corridor map in my implant rerouted twice, then gave up and displayed a calm advisory suggesting I reconsider proximity. I dismissed it with a thought and felt the implant sulk. Technology, I had learned, hated being ignored almost as much as people did. She walked like she belonged exactly where her feet touched the floor, as if gravity had been designed with her input. I, on the other hand, had spent the last decade bumping into corners I'd personally helped install. The contrast felt educational. People are staring, I said. They stare when I am alone, she replied. They stare more when I am not. That tracks, I said. Humans hate group projects unless everyone is the same. She glanced sideways at me, ears angling back slightly. You are aware you are becoming a project. I've been worse things, I said. At least projects sometimes get funding. We reached a transit ring, the kind that flung you gently but insistently to another sector if you stood on it long enough. The display flickered as we stepped on, recalculated mass, then recalculated again with visible frustration. Please remain still, the ring announced. This may feel unusual. That's comforting, I muttered. The ring activated anyway. The sensation was like being politely pushed by the universe. As we slid along the curved corridor at controlled speed, I noticed the vibrations smooth out, the ring humming at a frequency that made my teeth itch less than usual. You interfere with machines, I said. They interfere with me first, she replied. It is mutual. That's how all good relationships start. She smiled faintly. You make jokes when uncertain. I make jokes when certain too, I said, but they land better when I'm scared. The ring deposited us near the lower habitats, where ceilings dipped and the air smelled faintly recycled in a way that suggested it had stories it didn't want to tell. People here minded their own business by necessity. It was safer that way. Why me? I asked. Finally, she didn't answer right away. We walked past a food printer arguing with a customer about nutritional balance. The printer won. You were not afraid before you saw me, she said. That is rare. I'm afraid of plenty, I said, just not efficiently. That is why, she said, efficient fear is predictable. Glad to be unpredictable, I said, it's got me this far. We stopped near an observation viewport, the red dwarf burning sullenly beyond reinforced glass. My reflection overlapped hers faintly, human and almost human misaligned by a fraction of a second. They believe I hunt, she said. They believe proximity is dangerous. And is it, I asked. She considered. For them, sometimes, for you, not yet. Comforting, I said, I think. Her ears flicked, a gesture I was starting to recognize as amusement. You are still walking with me. I once followed a malfunctioning cleaning drone for 20 minutes because I thought it knew where it was going, I said. I have a history. We resumed walking. Security presence increased subtly, drones hovering farther away than usual, guards pretending to check tablets while very obviously checking us. One drone attempted to scan her, emitted a confused chirp, and projected a request for consent in 6 languages, including one that was definitely a mistake. She looked at it, it shut down mid-sentence and drifted into standby. I should report that, I said. You will not, she replied, correct. We reached my sector by accident or fate, which I was learning were functionally identical out here. A maintenance hatch hung open, warning lights pulsing in what I recognized as a plea for help. I need to fix that, I said. She peered into the hatch, eyes adjusting instantly to the dim. It is broken. Yes, I said. That's usually the criteria. I climbed in, tools unfolding from my belt, and she crouched at the opening, watching with open curiosity. The conduit sparked once, then settled as I rerouted power. My implant displayed a dozen alerts, all of which I ignored out of spite. You do this for survival? She asked. And for fun, I said, mostly survival. She nodded. I do many things for survival that others call monstrous. Humans are experts at that, I said. We've been calling each other monsters for centuries. The conduit stabilized, the lights outside brightened, steady and obedient. When I climbed out, she was closer than before, the space between us filled with something electric and not entirely unpleasant. Thank you, she said, for the lights. For not running, she said. I never run, I said. I walk strangely, remember. That got a sound from her that was definitely laughter this time. It echoed oddly, harmonizing with the station's hum, and for a moment the entire sector felt lighter, as if the metal itself had relaxed. Alarms did not sound. The station did not explode. No ancient curse activated. It was, frankly, disappointing. We stood there, human and alien vampire woman with long ears, maintenance worker and whispered threat, and I realized with a quiet, unsettling clarity that walking away now would be the strangest thing I could do. So I stayed. By the time the station officially decided I was a problem, I had already accepted it as a personality trait. The notice arrived in my implant with all the warmth of an automated apology, informing me that my movement patterns were statistically anomalous and that I was requested, not ordered, to report for a conversation. The request came with a helpful map that very carefully did not include her current location. She noticed the pause in my stride immediately. You received something, she said. I'm very popular today, I replied. The system wants to talk. Systems rarely want, she said, they react. That explains a lot about my love life. Her ears angled back, a gesture I'd come to associate with concern wrapped in restraint. You do not have to go. That's the thing, I said. When authority says you don't have to, what they mean is we'd prefer you comply before we escalate. We stood near the junction where civilian corridors met administrative space, a border more psychological than physical. On one side, the station buzzed with daily survival. On the other, it prepared to define that survival with rules, charts, and liability waivers. They will separate us, she said. They're going to try, I said. They try to separate anything that makes them uncomfortable. Mold, ideas, people. You are calm, she observed. I'm practicing, I said. It's new. A security team approached at a respectful distance, which would have been flattering if it weren't ominous. Their armor was polished, their expressions carefully neutral. One of them tripped slightly when his scanner refused to lock onto her and pretended it was intentional. Citizen, the lead guard said to me, we need you to step aside. I looked at her, she looked at me, no words passed between us but something settled, quiet and firm. I am stepping, I said, just not aside. That did not go over well. The station AI joined the conversation next, its voice filling the space with synthetic calm. Please refrain from escalating behavior. This situation can be resolved efficiently. Efficient fear is predictable, she said softly. I smiled despite myself. She's been working on her people skills. The AI paused, literally paused. I suspected someone in a control room was frantically checking diagnostics. What exactly is the issue? I asked. Because as far as I can tell, we're just walking. You are in violation of xenobiological safety protocols, the AI said. Prolonged proximity presents an unquantified risk. To whom? I asked. Everyone, it said, which was impressively vague. She stepped forward then, placing herself slightly ahead of me. It was not a protective gesture in the way humans understood it, but it felt like one anyway. I will speak, she said. The guard stiffened. The drones hovered closer, uncertain. Somewhere an alarm considered going off and decided against it. I was brought here as an asset, she continued. A resource to be studied, contained, and feared because fear is easier than understanding. I complied because survival required it. I comply less now. That's my influence, I said. I'm very rebellious. A few guards snorted before catching themselves. I do not feed on humans, she said. I do not hunt. My biology interacts with your technology in ways you have not finished categorizing, and that frightens you. You mistake that fear for danger. The AI processed that. Your presence has caused multiple system anomalies. Yes, she said, and none fatal. Your station remains intact. Your people remain alive. Your greatest loss has been comfort. I couldn't have said it better myself, which annoyed me slightly. The lead guard shifted. We can't just ignore protocol. I fix broken systems, I said, protocols included. Sometimes the problem isn't a malfunction, sometimes it's outdated assumptions. That is not your authority, he said. No, I agreed. But it is my responsibility. Silence stretched, the station hummed, lights flickered then steadied as if listening. Finally the AI spoke again. A review will be conducted. That sounds ominous, I said. It always does, the AI replied, and I could have sworn it sounded tired. The guards withdrew reluctantly, professionalism warring with relief. Drones backed away. The corridor breathed again. When it was over, when the station returned to pretending nothing unusual had happened, she turned to me. You risked much, she said. So did you, I replied. I have always risked much, she said. This was different. How so? She considered. This time I was not alone. That hit harder than any alarm could have. Life didn't become simple after that. It became honest, which was messier. The station revised its protocols in careful language that avoided admitting fault. She was reclassified from liability to resident, which meant better quarters and worse paperwork. I was reassigned unofficially to systems analysis, which meant fixing things people still didn't understand but now asked about politely. We walked open